Hi, everyone. My name is Corwin Kruse. I'm an attorney and the owner of Kruse Family Law located in Minneapolis. Welcome to our series, The Basics of Minnesota Divorce. The purpose of this series is to give you a brief overview of some of the topics that arise or that pertain to the divorce process in Minnesota. Please remember, I am not your attorney. This is not intended as legal advice. This is a very, very broad overview. Please consult your own attorney before you make any decisions regarding your own divorce. We're currently in the middle of talking about some of the most common issues in divorce. Today, episode 7, spousal maintenance, sometimes referred to as alimony. Some basic information about spousal maintenance. It is based on the marital standard of living. So what kind of standard of living did you have during your marriage? And here is where budgets become very important in demonstrating the standard of living that you had. What is a reasonable standard of living? Did you do a lot of traveling? Did you do a lot of eating out? Things like that. If you did, then those are part of your marital standard of living. Now, do keep in mind that if you were living beyond your means, running up a lot of credit card debt, things like that, you may not be able to replicate that standard of living after the divorce. Spousal maintenance can be temporary or permanent. Temporary just means that there is a specific ending date. Permanent means that there is no specific ending date. But that doesn't mean that it can't be terminated or modified. It just means that you don't know when or if that will occur. Now, as I said, spousal maintenance is always subject to modification or termination unless you specifically divest the court of jurisdiction. And you do this by including what is called a Karon waiver, K-A-R-O-N, in your decree. This is named after the case, Karon versus Karon. You can specifically say the court is divested of jurisdiction to modify or terminate spousal maintenance. That would mean it cannot be changed regardless of what happens to one or the other of you. And length of marriage is very important. Typically in Minnesota, if you have a short-term marriage, 7, 8 years or less, there's very unlikely to be any spousal maintenance involved. If you have a medium-term marriage, that could be 8 to 15 years or so, it's possible that you might have spousal maintenance be an issue. And if you have a long-term marriage, more than 16 years, it's fairly common for spousal maintenance to be an issue, at least if one of the parties makes a lot more money or one of the parties stays at home. So what are the grounds for maintenance? You're going to need to meet one of the following. Either you lack sufficient property to provide for your reasonable needs, considering the standard of marriage that you had, okay? So do you have a job that provides sufficient income? Do you have investments that provide a sufficient income? If not, then assuming you've been married a reasonable time, you may be eligible for spousal maintenance. Are you unable to provide self-support through appropriate employment? If you were in a marriage where one party makes a lot of money, the other party doesn't, then maybe that party that doesn't have the ability to get a job that would provide enough money to meet that standard of living. Now, what is reasonable is open to interpretation, and it's going to depend on your history and whether or not if you are unemployed or underemployed, is that voluntary or through no fault of your own? And the third ground for maintenance is if you are caring for a child whose condition or circumstances make it appropriate for you to stay home with them and not seek employment outside the home. This is typically going to occur in two instances. One, where you have young children who are simply not of age to take care of themselves, or two, if you have special needs children where they need additional assistance and have to have somebody at home with them. Now, assuming that you've met one of the grounds to get spousal maintenance, the question then becomes how much and how long. You're going to look at a number of things, and these are the things that you will look at. First, the financial resources of the party seeking maintenance and the ability of that party to meet needs. So again, through your employment, through investments, are you able to bring in enough money to meet your reasonable needs? What time is going to be necessary for you to continue your education or training to allow you to be self-supporting? Do you need a year to complete a degree? Do you need 6 months to regain certification of some type? If you need some time to get an education, to get training, to become self-supporting, that's a very good reason for temporary maintenance. Let's say you have 2 years to go to get your degree, and maybe you need another year or so beyond that to get a job and get to really be making enough money to support yourself. Then maybe you get spousal maintenance for 3 or 4 years. The length of the marriage, we've already talked about this. Short-term marriages, unlikely to get maintenance. Longer-term marriages, more likely to get it, and for longer. The standard of living, again, budgets. We need to know, what standard of living did you have during the marriage? Loss of earnings, seniority and retirement benefits. Did you give up a good job to stay home and raise the kids? Let's say that you were working as an engineer, mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, whatever. You were making $85,000, $90,000 a year. You decide to have kids. You decide to stay home and raise them. You've given up that income. You've also given up seniority, and you've lost a lot of retirement benefits. Those will make it more likely that you would receive maintenance longer and in a larger amount. Your age, health, physical condition. Are you able to work? How much are you able to work? Those sorts of things come into play. And then the ability of your spouse to meet his or her own needs while paying you maintenance. And this is very important. If you both have budget shortfalls, it's very unlikely that maintenance will be granted. The person who's paying maintenance needs to live themselves, so they need to meet their own needs before they can start paying you maintenance. So that becomes an issue as well. Now, I know this was just a very brief overview. If you have other questions, please get a hold of us. Take a look at our website, krusefamilylaw.com. There are a number of resources on there that you can find. Give us a call, 612-231-9865, or send me an email, corwin@krusefamilylaw.com. We'll do our best to answer your questions. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.